How long do you sit at a table you set up yourself, listening to your own father explain to 60 people why your brother is the only son who ever mattered? I lasted through the toast. My father took my late grandfather's watch off his own wrist, clasped it onto my brother Russell, and told the room I was the boy he never had to worry about, because I was never worth worrying over. Then he slid a single page across the linen and told me to sign my share away before I embarrassed the family. I am Sam. I am his other son. I put my pen down, and on the chair behind me, in my coat pocket, my dead grandfather's old flip phone started to ring, the one I'd carried for 2 years because the funeral home never knew what to do with it. I will tell you whose voice was on it before the end. For now, you only need to know one thing. Grandpa set that phone to ring on the exact night my father did this, and only my father didn't know the date was coming. Let me back up. Not far. Just to the part where I still thought the night would go fine. I booked the Ridgeline Hall myself. The banquet room with the long windows that look out over the parking lot, and past that, nothing. I picked the linens. I moved the dinner back 40 minutes because my father is always late and hates to walk into a room that is already eating. I wrote the seating cards in my own hand and put my father at the head, my brother Russell at his right, Russell's wife Diane beside him, and myself 1 seat down on the left, where a man can stand up to refill a glass without making anyone turn around. I have done that for 11 years. The standing up, the refilling. It is the thing I am for in this family. I had made my peace with it a long time ago. I am the younger son. The quiet one. My father has a word he uses for me when he wants the table to laugh, and the word is steady, and he does not mean it as a compliment. He means it the way you would mean it about a chair, a thing that holds your weight and does not ask to be thanked. Russell is the other kind of son. The kind a father builds sentences around. 40 years old, a handshake like a closing argument, and a way of walking into a room that makes the room feel chosen. I am not telling you that to make you dislike him. I want you to understand him, because what happened that night happened to him too, only slower, and he did not see it until it was already on his wrist. My brother was the favorite. My brother was also the bait. Both of those things were true at the same time, and on the night of the party only one of us at that table knew it, and it was not Russell, and it was not me. The phone in my coat pocket had been dead weight for 2 years. I should tell you about it now, because it is the whole story, and if I do not put it down early, people think I added it later. I did not. It was always there. My grandfather was Walter Hale Sr., Walt, to the men he started with, Mr. Hale to everyone who came after. He built the land and the fun that this family lives on the edge of the way you live on the edge of a lake you did not dig, close enough to fish, never sure it is yours. He started with 1 parcel and a habit of reading the part of a contract other men skip. By the time I was old enough to sit on his porch, he owned the kind of quiet that comes from never having to raise his voice. He raised 1 son, my father, and then my father raised 2. I was the grandson who stayed on the porch. That is the only credential I have in this story, and everything turns on it. I did not stay because I was good. I stayed because the porch was the only place in my childhood where nobody was performing. Russell came for the lake and the boat. I came for the chair next to the old man, and the long afternoons where he told the same 6 stories, and I let him. Because the 6th time he told one, he would slow down at a different part. And that part told me what he was actually thinking about that day. 2 months before he died, he handed me a phone. Not the kind anyone wanted. A flip phone, scuffed at the hinge, the silver worn off the corner where he had thumbed it open 10,000 times. He pressed it into my hand on the porch with the screen door banging behind us, and his fingers cold the way old men's fingers are cold even in July. "Grandpa, keep this charged," he said. "Every night. Don't ask me why." Why? I asked him anyway, because I was his grandson, and not yet a man who had learned that the old man only said a thing once. Grandpa. "Because I asked you to," he said, and he smiled the way he smiled when I had walked into exactly the spot he wanted me standing, and he did not answer the question under the question. Instead, he reached into the inside pocket of the cardigan he wore on the warmest days and took out an envelope, a real one. Heavy paper, sealed across the back, no name on the front, the kind of seal that has been pressed by a thumb that meant it. He pressed it on top of the phone in my hand and folded my fingers over both. "Grandpa, keep this one sealed," he said. "You'll know when it stops being yours to keep closed." "Know when what?" I asked. "Grandpa." "When it's time to be glad you listened," he said with the lake light on his face, and that was the whole of it. He never explained the phone. He never explained the envelope. He folded my fingers shut over both of them, and then, the way he always did when he had handed you something heavy and wanted to let you set it down for a while, he went back to a story I had heard 100 times. Grandpa. "First piece of ground I ever bought had a bad well and a good road," he said, settling back, looking out at the water. "Everybody told me to buy the land with the good well. I bought the road. You can dig a new well, Sam. Nobody ever dug a new road to a place they'd already decided wasn't worth driving to." He tapped the arm of his chair. "That's the whole business right there. Don't buy what looks finished. Buy what people can get to. The rest you fix." "You've told me that one," I said. "Grandpa." "I'll tell you again when you finally hear it," he said, and laughed, low, pleased with himself, and I let him, because letting him was the whole of what I was for on that porch. I drove home that night with a junk phone and a sealed envelope on the passenger seat and no idea I was carrying the rest of my life over the bridge. I plugged the phone in that night, the way you keep a small promise to someone you love. I figured I would do it for a week, and then it would join the drawer of dead remotes and warranty cards that every house has. He died 9 weeks later. Quiet, in his sleep, the way he did most things. And after the funeral, when the home handed me back a bag of his effects, the phone was in the bag, because the home, God bless them, did not know what to do with a flip phone that had no contacts saved and one number nobody recognized, so they had folded it in with his watch and his reading glasses and the comb he never used, and handed the whole sad little bundle to my father, who is the eldest, who reached into the bag at the wake. My father lifted out the watch, the gold one, Walt Sr.'s watch. He clasped it onto his own wrist right there at the wake, turned the band twice to set it, and looked at it on his arm.
"He'd want me to have this," he said to the room, to no one. 50 years he wore it. It should stay with the name.
Nobody argued. He was the only son. The watch goes to the son. That is how this family reads itself. I watched him do it, and I felt nothing I could name, and then I reached into the same bag and took out the phone. And Aunt Marion, who is my father's sister, and who has opinions about everyone she is related to, watched me do it.
"What on earth do you want with that old thing, Sam?" she said. "It doesn't even work, does it?"
"It works," I said. "He asked me to keep it."
"He asked you to keep his old phone." She said it flat, repeating it back to me the way she repeats things she intends to carry into another room. "And the watch goes to your father. Well, that sounds about right, doesn't it?"
I did not answer that. There is nothing under that sentence but the trap of agreeing with it. I put the phone in my coat. My father did not look at me lifting it out, but he saw it. I know now that he saw it, because 2 years later, at the party, his eyes went to that phone faster than a man's eyes go to a thing he has never thought about. I charged it that night, and the next, for 2 years. I cannot explain the 2 years in a way that does not sound foolish, so I will not try to make it sound wise. I kept it charged because a man I trusted more than my own father had asked me to and had not lived long enough for me to learn the reason. That is all. It sat on my dresser, a small green light in the dark. It never rang. It never buzzed. The screen showed a date and a time and one bar of signal from somewhere I never identified, and that was the entire life of the thing. My family found out, the way families do, and they made it a small joke that grew. At a barbecue the first summer, Russell picked it up off the table where I had set it down to carry plates, and he held it up to the light, turning it over, grinning.
"You still carrying this around?" he said. "Sam, brother, what are you waiting for, Grandpa to call?"
The table laughed. Easy, warm, the laugh of people who love you and have decided you are a little ridiculous. "I'm keeping it charged," I said. "That's all."
2 years. Russell flipped it open, looked at the empty screen, flipped it shut. "There's nothing in it. No numbers, nothing. It's a dead man's dead phone, Sam," he said it kindly. "That is the thing about my brother. He could put a knife in you and genuinely believe he was handing you a sandwich. Let it go. Bury it with him, in your head at least."
"It's sweet, really," Marian said to the table. "Not to me the way she says the cruelest things, the way Sam clings. Some people just can't let the dead be dead."
Sweet, out of Marian's mouth, is a knife with a ribbon on it. The table chuckled again, and my father, at the head of it, did not laugh. He held out his hand for the phone the way you hold out a hand for a thing you intend to settle.
"Let me see it," he said. Russell passed it down. My father turned it over once, weighed it in his palm, ran a thumb along the scuffed hinge. "Does the old man's phone still work, Walter?" one of his friends asked, half a joke. "Works fine, apparently," my father said. "My son keeps it charged every night. 2 years. He was not smiling the way the table was smiling. "What I want to know is what he thinks is going to come down the line on it. You waiting on a call, Sam? From who?"
"I'm not waiting on anything," I said. "He asked me to keep it charged, so I keep it charged."
"He asked you to keep it charged," my father repeated. Slow, the way Marian repeats a thing she means to carry into another room. He set the phone down on the table in front of me with a small click. Deliberate, like a man laying down a card he has decided not to play yet. Sentimental. Just like your grandfather, he kept things too. Drawers full of paper nobody else could read. He looked at me a beat too long, then he looked away. "Pass the corn."
I filed that look the way you file a sound in a house at night. You do not yet know that it mattered. Drawers full of paper nobody else could read. He said it like an insult about the dead. I have decided since that it was the first time my father was ever afraid of me, and that neither of us knew it, and that he buried the fear the way he buries everything, under a joke he let his sister make and a request to pass the corn. I took the phone back and put it in my pocket. The way he had weighed it in his palm and set it down so carefully stayed with me longer than anything he said that afternoon. A man does not handle a joke that gently. "I carried a dead man's flip phone for 2 years and kept it charged, and everyone at the table laughed at me for it. Would you have kept charging it, or would you have let it die?" I kept charging it. I want that on the record before the rest because the rest will make it look like I knew something. I did not. I was the kind of son who, when an old man on a porch asked him to hold something, held it. Now, the retirement. My father was turning 63 and stepping back from the day-to-day, and he wanted a party, and he wanted it done right, which in this family means he wanted me to do it and Russell to be at it. I did not mind. I genuinely did not. I told myself the truth I had been telling myself for years, which was that a man can be loved less and still be useful, and that useful is its own kind of belonging, and I had built a whole quiet life on the inside of that sentence. He called me about it himself, which was rare. He does not usually call me about things. He calls Russell about things, and Russell calls me to do them. But this he called about, and there was a tightness in his voice I should have read and did not.
"I want it small," he said. 60. The men I built with. Family, nothing showy. And Sam, I want it at the Ridgeline, the banquet room, not the country club. Somewhere quiet."
"I can do that," I said. "Any reason quiet?"
A man steps back, he doesn't need a parade, my father said. He needs to put a few things in order in front of the right people. That's all this is, putting things in order.
What things? I said.
The boys, the name. Who holds what when I'm not holding it? A pause on the line, and then the tightness in his voice tucked itself back under the warmth. Nothing for you to worry about, Sam. You never did have the head for that side of it. Just book the room. Make it nice. You're good at making things nice.
I'll make it nice, I said.
Good boy. And Sam, keep it between us that I called. Russell gets ideas. Then he hung up, the way he hangs up, mid-warmth, before you can say anything that costs him a reply.
I heard in order, and I thought he meant the speeches. The ordinary ceremony of an old man stepping down. I did not hear what the words were carrying, because I did not yet know there was anything to carry. He told me on the phone, 3 weeks early, exactly what he was going to do to me. I just did not have the key to read it. Nobody at that table did. Except the man who built the table, and he was 2 years dead, and he had left his key with the one grandson stupid enough to keep an old phone charged. I sent the invitations. 60 came. Old business friends of my father's, men who had bought and sold beside him for decades. Cousins, Marion, of course, who arrived early to inspect the room for anything she could mention later. She found me at the door checking the seating cards.
"It's a nice room," she said, which from Marion is a complete sentence with a second half she leaves for you to dread. Then she gave me the second half. "Your father tells me tonight's going to settle a few things. About the boys. About who carries what. You know about that?"
He didn't say anything to me about settling, I said.
"No," she said, and she patted my arm, and the pat had a whole verdict in it. "No, I don't suppose he would. You're not really the one who carries things, are you, Sam? You're the one who sets the table." She smiled. "Lovely cards, by the way. You always did have the neat handwriting. Somebody has to."
What's he settling, Marion? I said. If you know enough to warn me about it, you know what it is. So say it.
"I'm not warning you about anything, sweetheart," she said, already turning away. "I'm complimenting your handwriting. You hear a warning in a compliment? That's your business, not mine."
She moved off into the room. I stood at the door with the seating cards in my hand and felt the old familiar thing, the small cold drop of being told gently by someone who loves you in her way, exactly where the floor of you is. I had felt it my whole life. I had 1,000 calluses over it. I shook the next 60 hands and said thank you for coming 60 times and meant it about 40, and the whole time Marion's sentence sat in me like a stone in a shoe. Settle a few things. About who carries what. Russell found me by the kitchen door while I was checking the crab cakes. He had Diane on his arm and their 2 kids already turned loose toward the dessert table, and he looked good, my brother. He always looks good, and he put his free hand on my shoulder.
"You did all this?" he said, looking around at the room I had built. "It's good, Sam. Really. Dad's going to be happy."
He'll find something to move, I said. He always moves one thing.
"He always moves one thing." Russell laughed. Then the laugh dropped off and his voice went low, the way it does when he is about to say a true thing he is not sure he is allowed to. "Listen, he's been weird this month. You notice? Tense. Calling me about the business at odd hours, 10, 11 at night, talking about getting things under one name before he steps back. Numbers that don't sit right."
What kind of numbers? I said.
"I don't know. That's what's strange." He glanced toward Diane, then lowered his voice another notch. "There's money out the door I can't find the other side of. Big. And every time I ask, he tells me I worry too much and changes it to something about you.
Something about me.
That you hang around. That you're waiting for something." He said it fast, like he wanted it out of his mouth. I told him that's not you. You know I told him that.
What did he say?
He said, that's exactly the kind of son you have to keep an eye on, the quiet one. Russell shook his head and put his hand back on my shoulder, and for a second he was just my brother. The kid who taught me to skip stones on a lake we did not own. Forget it. It's a good night. Don't let him get under you when he does his microphone thing. He'll say something about you being steady. Take it as a compliment for once, would you?
I almost told him then. I did not. I had learned a long time ago not to hand Russell a worry, because he carries other people's worries the way he carries everything, out loud and badly, and I did not want my father warned. So I said the room looked good and went to check the microphone. I want you to notice how many people told me the truth that night before it happened. My father on the phone said he was putting things in order. My aunt at the door said tonight would settle who carries what. My brother at the kitchen said there was money he could not trace and a clean name to bury it under. Every one of them handed me a corner of it, and none of us could see the whole picture, because the whole picture lived in a phone on the back of a chair, and the phone had not rung yet. I had it in my coat. I had taken it off the charger that morning and slipped it in without thinking, the way you bring your wallet, because 2 years makes a thing part of your body. I did not bring it for any reason. I want to be clear about that because of what it did later. I brought it the way I would have brought a key to a door I no longer owned, out of habit, out of a hand that did not know how to leave it behind. Dinner went the way I had built it to go. My father came in 11 minutes late to a room already seated, exactly the entrance he likes, and worked the tables, and let men clap him on the shoulder, and accepted it all like weather he had ordered. He sat. He ate the crab cakes he pretends not to like. And he told the story about the first parcel, the way he always tells it, which is his father's story with the pronouns moved over a seat.
400 an acre for ground with a dry well, he told the table, holding court. Everybody said I was a fool. I sat on it 11 years and let them say it. That's the part nobody has the stomach for anymore, the sitting. He smiled around at them. I learned that the hard way. You learn it or you stay poor.
I had heard it enough times to know which parts he had moved. It was my grandfather who paid 400 an acre. It was my grandfather who sat on it 11 years. My father had been a boy then, fishing off the dock. But it was his night, and moving the pronouns back is not the kind of son I am. So I let him have the dry well in the 11 years, and the lesson he never actually learned, and I poured the water, and I said nothing. Then he stood up for the toast, and I poured his water the way I had poured it for 11 years, and I sat back down, and the night I had built came apart in the space of 90 seconds.
38 years, he said, lifting his glass to the room. Some of you have been across the table from me for 30 of them. You bought when I sold, and you sold when I bought, and we shook hands after, and that's a thing that doesn't happen anymore. The men murmured. He had them. I'm stepping back, not out, back. And before a man steps back, he ought to say plainly who's standing where. So I'm going to say it plainly the way my father would have.
He thanked them by name, 3 or 4 of them, the old ones.
Hollis, you robbed me on the Carter parcel, and I've forgiven you for 30 years, he said, and the room laughed. Pruitt, your father and I drew a fence line in the dirt with a stick once, and it's still standing. That's how we did it. He let the warmth build. A name doesn't keep itself. A name needs a keeper, one keeper. And before I step back, I'm going to stand here and tell you exactly who that keeper is.
He was warm, my father, when warmth costs him nothing. He is good at it, genuinely good, the way some men are good at tennis. The room went the good kind of quiet, the listening kind, and he turned to his right, to Russell, and he reached across his own body with his left hand and unclasped the watch from his own wrist. My grandfather's watch, the gold one, the one he lifted from the bag at the wake and said his father would want him to have. He took it off in front of 60 people, and he reached over, and he fastened it onto Russell's wrist. and he held Russell's forearm up a little, the way a referee holds up a fighter's arm so the room could see it catch the light.
My father wore this for 50 years, he said to the room. He built everything you see this family standing on, and a name like ours needs a keeper. One keeper, a son you don't have to wonder about. He turned Russell's wrist to the light. This is the son who carries the name, the only real one. The rest of us are just standing near it, and we should be glad we get to stand that close.
Then, without lowering his voice, without taking his eyes off Russell's wrist, my father lifted 2 fingers an inch off the table toward me, the way you signal a waiter you do not need to look at.
Sam, the toasting glasses are warm, he said, in the middle of his own crowning, into the quiet of 60 people watching the gold catch the light. Be useful. Top them while I finish. This part isn't about you anyway.
So I stood up at the head of the party I had built, in front of the whole room, while my father held my brother's arm up like a prize, and I picked up the pitcher, and I poured. I poured down one side of the table and back up the other, while a dead man's watch was fastened onto a living man's wrist, and the room let me and a woman near Marion, one I had shaken hands with at the door an hour before, lean to the man beside her and said it just loud enough to reach the next chair. Guessed. "Well, at least one of them's good for something," she said, and laughed, soft into her napkin.
"Oh, that's our Sam," Marian said back to her, not bothering to lower her voice, warm as anything. "He's the one who keeps the glasses full, always has been. You'll never want for water at a Hale table while Sam's standing."
My father heard both of them. I know he heard, because his eyes flicked over for half a second and then came back to Russell's wrist, and he did not say a word, and the not saying was a kind of agreement, and the women saw that it was, and so did the 3 people near enough to hear, and that is how a room learns in one sentence what a son is allowed to be. I finished pouring. I sat back down. The pitcher was the only thing in that hall that had asked anything of me all night. The room made the warm sound rooms make. A few people clapped. Diane's face did a complicated thing I did not have time to read. Russell looked at the watch on his own wrist with an expression I have gone back to 100 times since. While I poured, I caught one thing, and I have kept it. Russell, with his arm still held up in our father's grip, watched me come down the table with the pitcher, and his jaw moved once, the small motion of a man biting down on a word before it gets out. He started to say something to our father. I heard the front of it. "Dad, he doesn't have to." And then the room clapped, and our father turned his wrist to the light again, and Russell let the rest of the sentence go back down. He swallowed it. I was the only one positioned to see him do it.
"Dad, come on," Russell said, low, half a laugh in it, holding the lifted arm a second longer because the room wanted it. "It's a watch. You're embarrassing me."
Let me embarrass you, my father said, smiling for the room. A father gets one night to embarrass the son he's proud of. Hold still.
I did not understand the look on my brother that night, and I understand it now. It was not triumph. It was the face of a man who has just been handed something heavier than it looks and does not yet know why his arm is tired. Then my father turned to me.
"And Sam," he said, and he smiled, and the smile was for the room, not for me. "Sam is the boy I never had to worry about. Steady, Sam. You always know where Sam is. He let that land, let the fondness build in the room, let 60 people lean toward the warm part, because, between us, he was never quite worth the worry."
60 people laughed, not cruelly. That is the part I cannot make you feel unless you have lived it. They laughed warmly, fondly, the way you laugh at a thing a fond father says about a son who is in on the joke. They thought I was in on the joke. Marion laughed loudest, 2 tables over, and said it to the women near her, loud enough to carry, the way she always pitches a thing so it lands 1 table past where she's looking.
"He's right, you know," she said. "Sam's the one who pours. Always has been. Every family needs the one who pours. She caught my eye while she said it, because she had told me at the door, hadn't she? She had warned me, and she wanted the credit of having known.
Some of the men chuckled and looked at me to make sure I was smiling so they could keep smiling. I was smiling. I want you to know I was smiling. 11 years of refilling a glass teaches your face to do that without you. The cousin on my left leaned in, kind about it, the way people are kind when they want you to make it easy for them. Guessed. "He's proud of you too, you know," he said, in his way. "I know," I said. I did not believe it, and he did not believe I believed it, and we both let the sentence stand because that is what the sentence was for. And while the room laughed, my father reached into his jacket and took out a single folded page and pressed it flat on the linen and slid it across the table to me with 2 fingers. The way you slide a check you want someone to take quickly before they read it.
"Sign that tonight," he said. "Low now, just for me, under the noise of the room. It's a family understanding. Just settles your share so there's nothing to argue about later. Nobody fighting over my chair when I'm gone." His eyes did not have the warmth he had spent on the room. "Sign it before you embarrass yourself, Sam. Not here in front of everyone. Just initial it. Then we'll all have a nice night, and you can pour the next round."
I looked at the page. I am not going to tell you everything it said, because some of it I did not understand until much later, and the rest I am saving for the part of the night where it matters. I will tell you what I understood in that moment, which was enough. It was a page that asked me, in clean and friendly language, to agree that I had no claim to anything, to sign my own name to a sentence that said the steady son was content to stand near the name and never touch it. He had brought it to the party. He had folded it into his jacket next to his speech. He had planned the watch and the laugh and the page as one motion, 3 beats of the same gesture, and the gesture was simple. Erase the other son while everyone is feeling warm, and have the other son's own handwriting on the bottom of it. If your father took your grandfather's watch off his own wrist and clasped it onto your brother in front of 60 people, then turned to you, made the room laugh at you, and slid a pen across the table, would your hand have stayed as still as mine? Mine stayed still. It was not courage. It was that I had spent my whole life being underestimated by this man, and somewhere in that I had learned a stillness that looks like surrender and is not. I picked up the pen. I felt the table feel me pick it up, the small settling, the favorite crowned and the spare put away in one tidy evening. Marion leaned to the woman beside her and said something behind her hand, and the woman looked at me and then looked away. I put the pen down. I did not say no. I did not stand and make a speech. I have watched men in this family lose by making speeches. I set the pen on the linen beside the page, lined up parallel to the edge, and left my hand flat on the table and looked at my father, and waited. The room did not know anything had happened. To them I had simply not yet signed. My father's smile thinned at the edges. He is not a man who is told no, and he is even less a man who is told nothing, which is what I was telling him. Nothing, with my hand flat on the table and the pen lying down.
"Sam," he said, and the warning was in it now, quiet, the family voice, the one that has ended conversations for 40 years. "Don't do this here. Don't make tonight about you. For once."
I'm not making it about anything, I said. I'm just not signing it tonight.
"You'll sign it tonight." He leaned in, and the warmth was entirely gone now, scraped off, and underneath it was something I had never quite seen on my father. Not anger. Hurry. "You don't understand what you're holding up."
Then tell me, I said. Tell me what I'm holding up and I'll read it, and maybe I'll sign it. But I'm not putting my name to a page I haven't read at my own father's party because you're in a rush about it.
"It's a formality, Sam. A kindness, if you want the truth. I'm trying to keep you out of something."
Out of what?
out of the part where there's nothing for you anyway. He said it flat, the kindest cruel thing he knows how to do, and his eyes went, for half a second, to the watch on Russell's wrist and back. Your grandfather left the name to the family. The family decides who holds it. I'm the family, Sam. While I'm alive, I'm the family. And I've decided. Sign the page so it stays decided when I'm not.
Across the table, Russell had stopped smiling. He was watching the two of us now, the watch heavy on his wrist, and he leaned in too.
"Dad," he said low, "maybe not tonight. Let Sam read it. What's the rush? It's your party."
Stay out of it, Russell. This is between me and your brother. And then, to me, quieter still, with the thing underneath it pushing up through his voice, there are things in motion you don't see. There are things that have to be cleaned by. He stopped himself. He actually stopped himself, the way a man stops at the edge of a step he did not know was there. Just sign the page.
There are things in motion you don't see. Remember that he said it. He said it to make me feel small, to tell me I was a boy who did not understand the men's business. And it was the truest thing my father said all night, and he had no idea how true, and neither did I. There were things in motion. One of them was the page in front of me. One of them was the watch on my brother's wrist. And one of them, the one neither of us could see, the one that had been in motion for 2 years in a charger on my dresser, was about to ring. Because that was the moment. That exact moment, with my hand flat and the pen down and my father leaning in over a folded page and 60 people half watching a father and a son have a small, dull standoff at a nice party. That was when the phone in my coat pocket on the back of the chair behind me began to ring. I had not heard it ring in 2 years. I had forgotten the sound it made. It was an old sound, a cheap electronic chirp, tinny and insistent, the kind of ringtone that has not been manufactured since before either of my father's sons could vote. And it came out of the coat on the chair behind me into a banquet room that had gone in the space of that standoff. Almost quiet. I knew one thing the way you know it in your body before your mind agrees. It was not a wrong number. A phone with no contacts, and one number nobody recognized, does not ring by accident on the one night in 2 years it would matter most. Somebody had waited for this. Somebody had been told to wait for exactly this. The watch, the page, the room, the toast, and to call the instant it happened. I'm going to stop the night right there, with the phone ringing in the coat behind me and the pen lying down unsigned and my father's face beginning to change. I have to, because to make you feel what came next, you need the 2 years that led to it, and the 3 weeks, and the woman in the gray suit at the back of the room I have not even told you about yet. So hold that ring in your ear. A dead man's phone, going off at the exact second his son finished erasing me. Keep it ringing while I back all the way up, and I promise you we will come back to this chair and this ring and my hand reaching for the coat, and I will not leave you over my shoulder when we do. I will turn all the way around. I want to tell you what a room sounds like after it has watched a man get erased. It does not go silent. That is the thing nobody warns you about. It gets louder. Forks find plates again. Somebody laughs at the far end at a joke that has nothing to do with me. The party I planned goes right on being a party, because 60 people decided in the space of one toast that the cleanest thing to do with what they had just seen was to pretend they had not. My father had taken my grandfather's watch off his own wrist, fastened it onto my brother, called me the boy he never had to worry about, and slid a page across the linen for me to sign. And the room's answer was to keep eating. I am Sam. I am his other son, the one nobody worried over, and I sat at the head of my father's party with a pen I would not pick up. I did not sign. The pen sat on the page where my father had left it, and the page sat under his hand, and his hand did not move, and neither did mine. For a moment, we were 2 men at a table doing nothing, and the dinner went on around us like water around a stone. Then my father did the thing he is best at. He smiled. Not at me. At the table. At Aunt Marion 3 seats down. At the cousins. At the row of faces he had invited so that there would be witnesses. He picked his glass back up. He made it small. He made it nothing.
He's tired, my father said to the table. About me, the way you'd talk about a child who stayed up too late. Sam puts a lot into these things. You should have seen him with the seating chart. Color-coded. He's earned a rest.
He always was the careful one, my aunt said, warm as pie. Somebody has to count the chairs, Walter.
Somebody does, my father agreed. And somebody has to build the thing the chairs sit in. Different work, both honest.
A few people laughed, because laughing was easier than not laughing. And I understood, sitting there with the page in front of me, that this was the second move, not the first. The first move had been the watch and the pen. The second was to fold the watch and the pen into a joke about how hard the careful son works at parties. By morning, if he had his way, there would be no scene to remember. There would only be a man who said his son was tired.
Sign it tonight, Sam, he said, quieter now, leaning a degree toward me while the table went on talking. Do it now, and it's family. Do it Monday with a lawyer, and it's a fight. And you'll lose the fight, and you'll have made everyone choose. Don't make them choose.
Why now? I asked him. I kept my voice as low as his. It's your retirement party. You waited this long. Why does a piece of paper have to be signed at the dinner table tonight, in front of everyone? Something passed behind his eyes. Quick, there and gone. I did not have a name for it then. I do now.
Because I'm tired, Sam, he said, and he made it warm, made it a father's confession. I want it clean before I step back. I don't want you boys in a room with lawyers in 10 years over fence lines. I'm doing this so you don't have to. One day you'll understand that.
Then let me read it first, I said.
It's 1 page, he said. It says you and your brother love each other and nobody fights. Sign the page, Sam.
I looked at him. I did the thing I am best at, which is nothing dramatic at all. I picked up the water pitcher. I had filled it myself an hour before, the way I had filled it at every dinner like this for years, because my father liked his water without ice, and the staff always forgot. I leaned over and poured his glass full. The way I always did. He let me. He even gave me a small nod, the kind you give a waiter.
Good, he said, mistaking the pour for the answer. That's my Sam. You always did know how to make a night go smooth.
I set the pitcher down. I left the page where it was, unsigned. And I think he believed, in that nod, that he had won. That I had folded back into the shape he kept me in, the useful son, the one who pours. He turned to take a question from a cousin about the golf course out by the old property, and he was gone from me back into his party, certain the matter was closed. I sat back. Behind me, draped over the chair, was my coat. Remember the coat. In the right pocket of that coat that whole evening sat a small, ugly, outdated flip phone that had belonged to a dead man, and I had carried it for 2 years, and I kept it charged, and not one person at that table knew it was there, including me, you could almost say. I had stopped thinking about it the way you stop thinking about a key you always carry. It was a weight in the cloth, and nothing more. If your father took your grandfather's watch off his own wrist and clasped it onto your brother in front of 60 people, then handed you a pen, would your hand have stayed as still as mine? There was one person in that room who did not look away when my father erased me. I should tell you about her, because she is the reason the rest of this story has an ending, and is more than a wound. 2 tables back, near the doors, sat a woman in a gray suit who had not touched her dessert. 60, maybe a little past it, silver hair pinned up plain. She had arrived early, before most of the guests, and she had asked the host stand a single question, which the girl at the stand relayed to me with a small, confused frown. Where would the family be sitting? Not Walter. The family. I had not thought anything of it. People ask odd questions at parties. I had seated her toward the back, with the lawyers and the bank people and the men my father did business with, because that is where she said she belonged. Her name was Eleanor Brandt. If you had asked anyone at that party who she was, you would have gotten the same 3 words, said with the same shrug. I asked my aunt when I caught her looking that way.
"Oh, her?" Marian said. "That's the old man's lawyer. Your grandfather's. Drew up his papers for 30 years. I'm honestly surprised she still gets invited to things." She lowered her voice the way she did when she was about to be kind in a way that wasn't. "Between us, Sam, and I say this because I love you, you might want to stop circling all this. The estate. People talk. They see you at every dinner, organizing, hovering, and they wonder what you're waiting around for. Your grandfather's been gone 2 years. Let it rest."
Let it rest. There it was, the version of me that made the whole night comfortable for everybody. Sam, circling, hovering, waiting for his share. My aunt had been seeding that version into the family for months, one kind cruelty at a time, and I had let her, because arguing with it only made it look truer.
"I'm not waiting for anything, Marian," I said. "Of course not, sweetheart," she said, and patted my hand, and that was worse than if she'd called me a liar.
The old man's lawyer. That is all Eleanor Brandt was to that room. A leftover from a dead man's affairs, the way the watch was a leftover and the flip phone was a leftover, and, by my father's account, I was a leftover too. My father had invited her out of habit, the way you keep a chair nobody sits in. He had no idea. None of them did. And neither, I will be honest with you, did I. What I knew of Eleanor Brandt then was almost nothing. I knew she had handled my grandfather's papers for 30 years. I knew that at the funeral, 2 years before, she had been the only person besides me who stayed at the graveside after the others drifted back to their cars. I knew she had shaken my hand that day and held it a beat longer than a handshake needs, and said one strange sentence I had filed away and not understood.
"What hope do you have against me? He told me you were the one who stayed to listen," she had said at the grave 2 years before, still holding my hand. "He made me promise to remember your face," he said. "When the day comes, find the boy who stayed to listen, and tell him his grandfather never confused who pours the water with who matters."
Who are you? I had asked her. I don't think we've met.
"What hope do you have against me? I'm someone your grandfather trusted with a thing he couldn't carry himself any more," she had said. "That's all I'm allowed to be to you today. He made me a promise about the telling, and I keep my promises to that man, even now that he can't check." She had pressed my hand once more. "I only came to remember your face, so let me do that, and then let me go home."
I had thought at the time that it was the kind of thing lawyers say to the grieving, a kindness with no weight behind it. "Thank you," I had said. "What day are you talking about?"
"What hope do you have against me? You'll know it," she had said, "because it will be the worst one." And then she had let go of my hand and gotten into her car and driven off, and I had stood there in the cemetery thinking it was grief talking, hers or mine, and I had let the sentence go by.
You do not interrogate a sentence like that at a funeral. You let it go. And it had gone, and stayed gone, for 2 years, until tonight. The worst day. I did not think of her promise that night. I want to be exact about that. The sentence had sunk so far down in me that, when the worst day actually came, when my father took the watch off his wrist, I did not connect the two. I only knew I was being erased, and that across the room a tired old lawyer was watching me get erased, and not looking away. While the room arranged its face into not having seen, Eleanor Brandt watched the whole thing without blinking, the watch, the pen, the page. And she took, from the inside pocket of that gray jacket, a phone of her own, a flat modern one, and set it face up on the white cloth beside her untouched plate. She did not dial it. She did not lift it. She set it down where she could see it, the way a person sets down a thing they are about to need. I did not know what that meant. The whole shape of the night turns on what I did and did not know, so let me be exact. I saw a tired older lawyer put her phone on the table, and I thought, if I thought anything, that she was checking the time. Here is what I did not know. Eleanor Brandt was more than my grandfather's lawyer. Years before, he had named her to a second job nobody at that table had a word for. Appointed her, in writing, to guard a thing he had built, to hold the original of a document and to act on her own, without asking my father, without asking anyone, the instant a certain thing happened in the world. She had carried for years a single standing instruction in her own hand, a sentence my grandfather made her promise to keep until the day it was needed. And the thing my father had just done in front of 60 people was the exact thing that instruction had been waiting for. I knew none of it. I knew she had stayed at the grave. I knew she had set her phone on the cloth. But looking back, the moment my father took that watch off his wrist, something changed in the gray-suited woman by the doors. Some small tightening, the look of a person who has been told for years to wait and has just heard the bell. I got up. There was nothing brave in it. The back tables were the ones the staff forgot, and I am the one who notices when a back table gets forgotten, and I needed, just then, to be a body in motion instead of a man being talked about. So I took the pitcher and walked the long way around the room, filling glasses, doing the only job my family had ever fully trusted me with. And the long way ended, the way I think some part of me meant it to, at the table by the doors, where the old man's lawyer sat with a full glass she had not touched. "You haven't had your water," I said, and I poured it anyway because that is what I do.
"What hope do you have against me?" "Sam Hale," she said, not a question. She watched the water rise in the glass and did not reach for it. "You set up this whole room yourself, didn't you? The chairs, the flowers, the cake with his name on it."
"Somebody has to count the chairs," I said.
"What hope do you have against me?" "Somebody does," she said, and something moved at the corner of her mouth that was almost, but not quite, a smile. "Sit down a second. You've been on your feet since 4. I watched you carry the centerpieces in yourself."
I did not sit. I stood there with the pitcher, half turned back toward my father's table, the way you stand when you mean to leave in a moment. "Do I know you?" I asked her. "From somewhere besides the funeral?"
"What hope do you have against me?" "You knew me for about a minute at a graveside 2 years ago," she said. "I held your hand a little too long and said something strange, and you've been trying to forget it ever since. I don't blame you. What hope do you have again to say?" She finally lifted the glass, drank, set it down precisely on the ring it had left. "I was your grandfather's lawyer 30 years. I did his papers, his deeds. What hope do you have against me?" "What hope do you have against me?" "People at this party think that makes me a piece of furniture from a house that's been sold." She looked up at me. "Your father certainly thinks so. He sat me back here with the bankers."
"That's where you said you belonged," I said.
"It is exactly where I belong," she said, "for now."
For now. I have heard those 2 words 1,000 times in my life, and they have never once meant what they meant in her mouth that night. I did not have a word for it then. I only knew that this tired woman in a gray suit had said for now about her own seat at a party the way a person says it about a thing that is going to change. "Did my grandfather send you?" I asked her. I don't know why I asked it. It came out before I had decided to ask anything. Her hands went still on the cloth. For just a second, the whole back of the room seemed to go still with them. Then she picked up her napkin, folded it once, and set it down. And when she answered, she had put something away in herself, locked it, the way a person closes a drawer with one hand while they keep talking with the other.
"What hope do you have against me?" "Your grandfather," she said carefully, "asked me a long time ago to come to a party some day. He told me which one I'd know it by. He didn't say much more than that, and what little he did say, he made me promise to keep until the right moment. So no, I'm not going to tell you why I'm here, Sam. Not yet. What hope do you have against me? It wouldn't be mine to tell yet, and you'd spend the rest of the night looking like a man who knows something, and that's the last thing either of us needs you to look like right now.
That's not an answer, I said.
What hope do you have against me? No, she agreed. It isn't. I'm sorry. I've waited 2 years to not answer that question, and I'd like to do it correctly. She glanced past me once, to where my father stood holding his glass and the room, then back. Do one thing for me. One. Don't sign your father's page tonight. What hope do you have against me? Whatever else you do, whatever you're feeling, and I saw your face when he took the watch off his wrist, so I know what you're feeling. Do not put your name on that paper. Can you promise me that much, without me telling you why?
I already decided not to sign it, I said.
What hope do you have against me? I know you did, she said. I watched you put the pen down. That's partly how I knew you were the right one. She caught herself on the last words, the way you catch a step you didn't mean to take. What hope do you have against me? Go back to your table, Sam. Pour your father's water. Be the careful son a little while longer. She picked the glass up again. What hope do you have against me? And over the rim of it she said the last thing she would say to me until everything broke open. What hope do you have against me? And whatever happens before this night is over, stay in the room. Don't go home early. Promise me you'll stay until the cake.
It's my father's party, I said. Where would I go?
What hope do you have against me? Men leave their father's parties all the time, she said. It would be the most natural thing in the world for you to walk out of here right now with your dignity in your pocket and never know what you missed. Stay. That's all. Stay until the cake. She set the glass down and squared it on its ring. There's a thing your grandfather arranged a long time ago, Sam. It's already in motion. What hope do you have against me? It was set to happen on one particular night, and your father picked that night without knowing he picked it. I'm not going to tell you more than that. But if you're in this room when it lands, you'll be glad. And if you're in your car, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering. So sit. Pour the water. Wait for it.
I went back to my table. I poured my father's water. I told myself the old woman was lonely or strange or living too long inside the affairs of a dead man, the way some lawyers do. I told myself a lot of things on that walk back across the room. But I noticed, when I sat down, that her phone was still face up on the cloth where she could see it, and that her hand rested next to it, and that she was watching my father the way you watch a man who is about to do something he can't take back. Stay until the cake. I did not understand it. I filed it next to the other strange sentence she had given me at a graveside, in the same drawer where I kept things from her that I did not understand, and I let it sit. My father was talking again. He had recovered the table the way a host recovers a table, with bread and with charm. And he was telling a story everyone had heard before about the first piece of land my grandfather ever bought, the strip out past the ridge line that the whole estate had grown from.
He paid $400 an acre for dirt nobody wanted. My father told the table, holding his glass. And he sat on it for 11 years while everyone called him a fool. My father was a stubborn man. I'll give him that much.
Tell the part about the survey, my brother said from his new seat at our father's right hand, with the watch loose and gleaming on his wrist.
The survey, my father said, smiling. So the county surveyor comes out, and he tells the old man his east line is 3 feet over onto the Pruitt place. 3 feet. And my father looks at him and says, "Son, I bought that line when your boss was in diapers. Move your stake." The table roared. And you know what? The stake moved. That was the whole man right there. He didn't argue the survey. He just outlasted it.
And the table laughed in the right places, and my brother laughed loudest, the way he had laughed loudest at our father's stories our whole lives.
He got lucky once, my father said, settling the glass. And then he got stubborn, and stubborn looks like genius if you live long enough. The rest of us just had to build something on the dirt he sat on.
He let the room do the arithmetic. The old man bought a strip of dirt. Walter built the rest. And twice, while he told it, I watched my father do a thing I noticed and did not understand. He looked at his own bare wrist. Just a glance, down and away, the small reflex of a man checking the time on a watch that was no longer there. Because the watch was on Russell now, gleaming under the lights 2 feet to his right. He had given it away 40 minutes ago, and his arm did not know it yet. But it was not only that. The second time he looked at the empty wrist, his eyes did not come straight back to the table. They went to the doors at the back of the room, the ones Eleanor Brant was sitting beside, and they held there a half-second too long, and then he picked his glass back up and went on with the story. I am not going to tell you what that look meant. I did not know it then. I only filed it, the way I had filed the way he weighed the phone in his palm 2 years before, in the drawer where I keep the things a man does before I understand why he did them. I should tell you about Russell, because if you take away one wrong idea tonight, let it be that my brother was the villain of this. He was not. He was the favorite, which is a different thing, and a worse one. He is 4 years older than me, with my father's hands, and my father's voice, and my father's way of filling a doorway. The math of our family was simple, and never spoken. Russell was the son who would carry the name. I was the son who would help him carry it. Russell got the firm handshakes. I got the seating charts. Russell stood next to my father in the photographs. I took the photographs. Nobody decided this in a meeting. It was the weather we grew up in, and you do not argue with weather. At some point in the survey story, he caught me not laughing, and for a second the favorite son looked at his brother across the table, and I think a flicker of something honest went over his face. Not guilt. He was nowhere near guilt yet, but maybe the awareness that I was a person in the room.
"Hey," Russell said to me, low, while our father held the rest of the table. "Don't take the pen thing hard. You know how Dad is at a podium. He gets a crowd and he turns it up." He turned the watch on his wrist, an easy, idle motion, the way you'd toy with a ring. "It's just a watch, Sam."
He took it off his own wrist, I said, in front of 60 people, and put it on yours. You really think that's about telling time?
"It's a watch with a story," Russell said. "All this stuff has a story. The watch, the land, Grandpa's stupid little phone you keep charging. You attach a story to it and then you can't let any of it go. That's your whole problem, you know that? You hold on." He said it kindly. That was the maddening thing. He said it the way you'd point out a stain on a friend's shirt. Me, I'm gonna wear it, enjoy it, not think about it. You should try not thinking about it.
Some things hold on to you, I said, whether you think about them or not.
"Listen to you," Russell said and laughed. "That's a fortune cookie, little brother. That's not a life. Put the cookie down."
It's just a watch. He believed that. That is the part I keep coming back to. He had it on his wrist, the dead man's watch, my father's coronation gift, and he could call it just a watch, because for Russell it really was. Nothing had ever cost him anything. The crown had always just been there.
"Sign his paper Monday if you want," Russell went on. "Generous now, expansive. A man who could afford to be. Or don't. Diane thinks the whole arrangement's a mess anyway. Nobody actually knows what Grandpa left to who. You know that, right? It's all just Dad saying things."
Then what's the paper for, I said, if it's all just Dad saying things?
"So it stops being a question," Russell said, like it was obvious. "Dad wants it clean before he retires. One name on everything, no loose ends, no in-laws fighting over fence lines in 10 years. He picked me. Fine. It's a headache, honestly, all the signing he's got me doing this month. You should be glad it's not you." He clapped my shoulder. "Let it go, little brother. You'll be fine. You're always fine."
What signing? I said. What's he got you signing this month?
"I don't know. Paper." Consents, consolidations, whatever the lawyers call it. He waved it off. Dad says sign here. I sign here. He's my father, Sam. You don't read every page when it's your own father holding the pen. He grinned. See, that right there, that look you're doing. That's why he doesn't hand you the pen. You'd want to read it.
And then he did a small thing he did not know he was doing. He turned the watch on his wrist, the way you turn a ring that does not quite fit, and he looked down at it. And for a half-second, the lit-up look went out of his face the way a porch light goes out when a cloud crosses nothing. He looked at the gold face of it like it had asked him a question. Then he glanced toward the back of the room, fast, toward nothing I could see, and then back at me, and the easy grin came down over it again like a man pulling a tarp over something in the bed of a truck. I did not know what he had felt. I am not sure he did either, but he had felt it in front of me, and I filed it. All the signing he's got me doing this month. He said it the way you'd mention an annoyance, a thing keeping him late at the office. I heard it and let it pass over me, the way you let a single odd word pass in a long, easy sentence from someone you trust. I did not catch it. I want to be honest about that. There were 3 or 4 moments that night when the truth walked right up to me and said its own name, and that was one of them, and I missed it, because Russell was smiling and the room was warm, and I had spent my whole life not catching the things my family said in front of me. You're always fine. The son nobody had to worry over. I did not argue with him. I had stopped being jealous of Russell years ago, the way you stop being jealous of the son. He went back to our father's right hand, lit up, happy, wearing the watch, doing whatever signing our father had him doing this month, and thinking it was a headache instead of a noose. I want to be fair to him, because of what comes later. He did not gloat at me. He was not cruel. He was just a man who had finally been handed the thing he was raised to want. And none of us at that table, least of all Russell, knew yet what the crown actually weighed. That comes later, and it changes everything about the way you will remember him smiling. For now, hold the picture, the favorite son, lit up, wearing the dead man's watch, not knowing. Across the room, the gray-suited woman watched my brother turn the watch on his wrist. She did not smile. She wrote something small in a notebook, put it away, looked at the phone face up on the cloth, and waited. There is one more thing about that porch afternoon I have not given you, and it is the part that explains why the phone rang. He had asked for me by name to drive out that day, not for my father, not for Russell, for me. And before he sent me home with the junk phone and the sealed envelope on the seat beside me, he closed my fingers around the 2 things and said the rest of it. Grandpa. Keep it charged, my grandfather said. Don't ask why, and don't open the envelope. You'll know when it stops being yours to keep closed. Grandpa, what is this? I asked him. What's it for? Grandpa. It's for the day somebody decides he can hand out what isn't his, he said. He patted my hand. Why me? I asked. Russell's the oldest. Dad's your son. Why are you putting this in my hands? Grandpa. Because you're the one who stayed on the porch, he said. Your brother came for the lake. Your father came for the reading of the will, his whole life, even before there was one. You came for the chair. A man learns who to trust by who keeps sitting there after the stories get boring. He closed my fingers tighter around the phone. Now go check the back fence for me. The Pruitt boy's been at the marker again. And Sam, don't tell a soul you've got these. Not your brother, especially not your father. A thing only stays a key as long as the lock doesn't know it exists. That was all. I went and checked the fence because you do not argue with him, and 9 weeks later, he was gone. So I kept it charged, and I kept the envelope sealed in a drawer, and after a while I stopped wondering what was in either of them. They were just 2 more things a man I loved had handed me and not explained. My family knew about the phone because you cannot keep charging a flip phone for 2 years without someone noticing, and they had a name for it, which was a joke.
How's the Ouija board, Sam? Russell would say at holidays. Grandpa call you back yet?
Leave him be, Marion would say. which sounded like defense and was not. He misses his grandfather. It's sweet. Strange, but sweet. Some people just can't close a door.
My father used it differently. He used it gently, smiling, the same way he was using everything tonight, as evidence. I had heard him do it at this very kind of table, fond as anything, while I sat right there.
Sam still charges his grandfather's phone. He told a table of his business friends once. 2 years every night. He's got a good heart, my younger boy. Not a hard bone in him. Jacques sentimental. One of the men had said, agreeable the way you agree with a man whose deals you want. Sentimental, my father agreed. Which is a fine thing in a son. You just don't put a man like that in charge of anything that bites.
You can build a whole quiet case against a man out of one small tender habit if you tell it with a smile, and my father had been building that case for 2 years, one mention of the flip phone at a time. Not a man you put in charge of anything that bites. That was the verdict. That was why the watch went to Russell and the pen came to me. I carried a dead man's flip phone for 2 years and kept it charged, and everyone at the table laughed at me for it. Would you have kept charging it or let it die? I had brought it to the party, but not as strategy. I had no plan. I did not bring it knowing it would ring. I was the one person at that table who had the one thing that mattered, and I did not know I was carrying it, and I had been carrying it, charged, for exactly as long as I needed to. So that is the board set. My father at the head, the watch given away, the page unsigned under his hand. My brother at his right, lit up, calling it just a watch. Aunt Marion seating the table with the version of me that made all of this comfortable. 60 guests agreeing, by eating, to forget. And 2 tables back, a gray-suited woman the whole room dismissed as the old man's lawyer, her phone face up on the cloth, telling me to stay until the cake. And me, pouring the water, saying nothing, carrying a dead man's phone I thought was only grief. I almost left anyway. It is the closest the night came to never happening. There was a stretch after the Ridgeline story and before the cake when I sat with the page in front of me and thought, get your coat, go home, let them have it. There is a version of this story where I do, and in it the flip phone rings in the parking lot with no one to hear it but me, and the whole thing my grandfather built comes apart in the dark with no witnesses. I did not leave, and the reason is small and stupid, and I will give it to you plainly. The catering manager came over while I was reaching for my coat. Server. Are we ready for the cake? She asked me, quiet, the way you ask the person who hired you. It's got his name on it. You want me to bring it out now or wait? Now's fine, I said. Thank you. That is it. That is the whole heroic reason I stayed in my chair. There was a cake with my father's name on it, and I had ordered it, and a tired woman in catering blacks needed an answer, and I gave her one, and by the time the answer was out of my mouth, the moment to leave had closed. So I stayed, and the cake came out, and my father stood up to thank the room, and the gray-suited woman 2 tables back picked up her phone off the cloth and held it in her hand, finally, the way a person picks up a thing whose time has come. She did not dial. Not yet. She turned in her chair, and across the whole length of that bright, loud room, over the heads of 60 people lifting forks to a cake with my father's name on it, Eleanor Brandt looked at me. Directly at me. The only person in that room who had looked at me, really looked, since the watch came off my father's wrist. And she did a thing I have turned over 1,000 times since, trying to decide whether I understood it then or only built the understanding later. She lifted 2 fingers off the screen of her phone, just lifted them, an inch, a small, deliberate stillness. And she let me see her do it. The way you show a card you are not yet playing. The way a person says, without a word, across a room full of people who think nothing is happening. Not yet. Soon. Watch. I did not know what it meant. I want to end this part as honest with you as I have tried to be all the way through. I did not know who she was beyond the old man's lawyer. I did not know there was a number, or a standing instruction, or an original of anything. I knew only that a woman the whole room had written off had just looked across that room at me, alone of all of them, and held up 2 fingers off a phone, and that the held breath of it ran down my arms cold. And in the coat behind me, in the pocket against the chair back, the dead man's flip phone I had carried for 2 years and charged every night and never once heard make a sound, sat charged and silent and waiting, for the first time in 2 years, on something. So now you have the whole board, and you have the woman by the doors with her 2 fingers off the phone, and you have me at my father's table with the picture in my hand and the page still unsigned under his palm. I want to bring you all the way up to the chair now, to the ring. But I am not going to rush it, because the minutes between the woman in the gray suit holding up those 2 fingers and the phone going off in my coat are the minutes I have lived in ever since, and you should get to live in them too. Nothing in them is loud. That is the thing about the worst minute of your life. It almost always looks, from the outside, like nothing is happening at all. The cake came out. I want to tell you about the cake, because I ordered it, and because it is the last ordinary thing in this story. White, 2 tiers. My father's name in gold script across the top, the same gold I had picked to match the banner over the bar. The catering manager found me first, the way she had found me about everything all night, because I was the one who had hired her and the one who answered. Server. "We're ready when you are," she said, low, leaning down to my ear. "You want me to bring it out before the next speech or after? Some families like to cut before the toasts so people can leave when they're full." "Before's fine," I said. "Bring it now. He'll want to be standing when it comes out." Server. "He spelled it Walter, not Walt, right? On the cake?" "Walter," I said. "He's particular about that. Walt was his father." She nodded and went, and that was the last ordinary sentence I said that night, a sentence about how my father liked his own name spelled, and I did not know it was the last ordinary one, and that is how the worst nights go. You spend the final calm minute of your life deciding the icing. She wheeled it out on a cart with a squeaking wheel, and the room made the sound a room makes for a cake, that soft, pleased rise, and somebody started the clapping that turns into the clapping for a speech, and my father stood up into it the way he stood up into everything, like it had been arranged for him by a god who agreed with him. He had his glass. He waited for the room to settle, which it did, fast, because 60 people had come to watch him be the center of a thing and were glad to be told when.
Sit, he said, waving the standing ones down. "Nobody stands at my party but me. That's the one rule." They laughed and sat. He let them. 38 years. I said it earlier, and I'll say it once more because some of you came in late, and you know who you are, Don. A bigger laugh. He had them in his hand, my father, the way he always had a room in his hand. 38 years of buying when the smart money sold and selling when the smart money bought, and shaking hands on it after. You don't get that anymore. You get lawyers. I got handshakes. I'm a lucky man.
He let the warmth sit. He was good at letting warmth sit. I watched him from one seat down on the left, the seat I had given myself when I wrote the cards, the seat a man can rise from to pour without making the room turn. And I thought, the way I had thought 100 times that night, that he was about to be done, that the page under his hand would keep until morning, that I could get the cake cut and the coats found and go home.
But a man my age doesn't throw a party to look backward, he said. He throws it to say a few things forward, so. He set his glass down. He reached across his own body with his left hand, the way I had watched him do at the wake 2 years before, and he found the clasp of the watch on his right wrist. My father wore this watch 50 years, Walt Sr. Some of you knew him. Most of you bought land off him before you ever met me. He worked the clasp open with his thumb. He built the thing this whole family stands on, and a thing like that, when the man who built it is gone, it needs a keeper. not a committee. A keeper. One name people can trust without having to think about it.
The room went the good kind of quiet, the leaning kind, all 60 of them tipping toward my father and the gold watch coming loose in his fingers. He turned to his right, to Russell, and something crossed my brother's face I want to be fair about because I have had 2 years to be unfair about it. It was not greed. Russell wanted the watch the way a son wants the one clear sign after 40 years that his father had chosen him on purpose. That is a hungrier thing than greed, and a sadder one, and it was all over his face when our father reached for his wrist.
This is the son who carries the name, my father said, and he fastened the watch onto Russell's wrist and turned the band twice the way you turn a band to set it, and lifted Russell's forearm a little, the way a referee lifts a fighter's arm, so the gold caught the light and the room could see it catch. The only real one, a son you never have to wonder about. The rest of us, and here he smiled, and the smile took in the whole table, took in me, folded me into it like a napkin. The rest of us are just lucky we get to stand this close to him.
The room made its warm sound. A few people clapped. Diane, at Russell's other side, did a complicated thing with her face that I did not have time to read and have thought about since. And Russell looked down at the watch on his own wrist, heavy and loose, because our father's wrist had gone thin with age and his had not, and the look on him was not triumph. I keep coming back to that. It was the look of a man handed something heavier than it looks, who does not yet know why his arm is already tired. Then my father turned to me and he smiled, and the smile was not for me. It was for the room, a tool he was working on the room with my face as the handle.
And Sam, he said, and he let the fondness build, let 60 people lean toward the warm part. Sam is the boy I never had to worry about, steady Sam. You always know where Sam is. He's by the water pitcher. A ripple of laughter, easy fond. He wrote it. He set up this whole beautiful room, counted every chair, color-coded the cards, I'm told. More laughter. He waited for it, the way you wait for a wave to come back. He's the careful one. And between us, he lowered it half a degree, made it intimate, made 60 people feel let in on something. He was never quite worth the worrying, which is its own kind of gift in a son. The one you don't have to think about.
60 people laughed, and not cruelly, warmly, the way you laugh at a thing a loving father says about a son who is in on the joke. They thought I was in on the joke. I was smiling. 11 years of refilling a glass had taught my face to smile without me, and so I sat at the head of the party I had built with my own face, betraying me while a room full of my father's business sorted me, gently and forever, into the kind of man you are fond of and do not count. Aunt Marion, 2 tables down, laughed loudest and pitched it past where she was looking, the way she always pitched a thing so it would land 1 table over from her eyes.
"He's right, you know," she said to the women beside her, loud enough to carry, looking at them and meaning me. "Sam's the one who pours, always has been. Every family needs the one who pours." She caught my eye on the last word because she had warned me at the door, hadn't she? She had told me at the door that tonight would settle who carried what, and she wanted the small credit of having known before I did.
Some of the men near me chuckled and looked over to make sure I was still smiling, so that they could keep smiling too. I kept smiling. I held it the way you hold a full glass on a moving train with your whole body, so that nothing in it shows. One of them leaned my way, an old business friend of my father's named Don, red-faced and kind in the way that costs nothing, and he put a hand on my arm the way men do when they want to soften a thing they are only repeating. Guessed. "He doesn't mean it the way it sounds, son," Don said. "Your dad. He's proud of you. He's just not built to say it pointed at you, so he says it sideways. You take my meaning." "I take your meaning, Don," I said. "Can I top you off?" Guessed. "You're a good boy," Don said, and let me fill his glass. And I think he believed he had done me a kindness, and the worst part is that he had, in his way. He was the only man at that table who leaned over to tell me my father loved me, and he did it to excuse my father. And he meant every word. And I poured his water and thanked him, and felt the same small, cold drop I had been feeling all my life. Across the table, my brother was working a different angle on the same wound. Russell had the watch on, gold and loose, and he kept catching me looking at it. And finally he leaned in, easy, generous. A man who could afford to be generous because he had just been handed everything.
"Hey," he said. "Don't sit there doing the thing you do, the quiet thing. It's a watch, Sam. It tells time. You want to know a secret?" He turned it on his wrist. "It runs fast. Grandpa never said it right. Dad just clasped a watch on me that's 3 minutes off in front of 60 people, like it's the crown jewels. That's the whole joke of this family. Everybody bowing at a watch that can't even keep the time."
"Then give it back to him," I said. "If it's just a fast watch."
"I'm not giving it back," Russell said, and he laughed, but the laugh had a hook in it I did not understand yet. "You don't give a thing back at a podium. You take the thing and you smile, and you let the man have his night. That's the part you never learned, little brother. You hold on to everything. The phone, the grudges, the way Dad talks. Me, I let it slide off. You should try it. Let tonight slide off you. Pour the water, eat the cake, go home, wake up Tuesday. None of this means anything by Tuesday."
None of this means anything by Tuesday. He believed that. I want you to hold on to the fact that my brother sat there with our grandfather's watch on his wrist, and our father's whole evening arranged around him, and genuinely believed that by Tuesday it would all have slid off and meant nothing. Because before the cake was even cut that night, he would learn exactly how much it meant, and it would not slide off him, not ever. And the man telling me to let things go would be the one who could not. I did not argue with him. I have never once won an argument with Russell because he stops listening the moment a thing gets heavy, the way you set down a suitcase. So I got up with the pitcher and made the slow loop I always make, filling the glasses the staff forget at the back tables, and that loop is the only reason I was on my feet and moving when the next thing happened. Aunt Marion caught my sleeve as I passed.
"Sit with me a second, Sam," she said, and did not let go of my sleeve, which is how Marion asks a thing. She takes hold of the cloth so that leaving becomes a decision you have to make with your whole arm. "I want to say something to you, and I want you to hear it as love, because it is love."
"It's always love, Marion," I said.
"It is," she said, missing it on purpose. "Now listen, your father just stood up and was generous about you in front of everyone, in his way, and I watched you sit there with a face like a closed bank. People notice that. They notice the one who can't be happy at a party. You've got a look about you tonight. Sweetheart, the look of a man counting something. And I'm telling you, because nobody else will, stop counting. Whatever it is you think is owed to you, stop counting it. It's the counting that's going to cost you this family, not the watch."
"I'm not counting anything, Marion," I said. "I poured the water and I'm pouring the water. That's the whole of what I'm doing tonight."
"Of course you are, sweetheart," she said, and patted my sleeve and let it go. And that pat had a verdict folded into it the way her pats always did. The verdict that I was exactly the circling, grasping, counting son she had been describing to the family for a year, and that my denying it was simply the sound the verdict made coming true. I walked the rest of the loop with her handprint still on my sleeve, and the word counting sitting in me like a stone in a shoe.
And while the room was still warm, while the laughter was still in the air with nowhere to go but down, My father reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and took out a single folded page and pressed it flat against the linen with the heel of his hand and slid it across the table to me with 2 fingers, the way you slide a check you want a man to pocket before he reads the number on it.
"Sign that tonight," he said. "Low now, just for me, under the noise of the room. It's a family understanding. Nothing to it. It just settles your share so there's nothing for anybody to argue over later. So nobody's in a lawyer's office over fence lines when I'm gone." His eyes did not have the warmth he had just spent on the room. The warmth was a thing he turned off the second it had done its work, like a tap. "Sign it before you embarrass yourself, Sam. Not out loud. Not in front of everyone. Just initial the bottom, slide it back, and we'll cut the cake."
I looked at the page. I had looked at it once already that night and put the pen down, and the room had not known anything happened, and my father had recovered it with a joke about a tired son, and we had gone on. But here it was again, slid across the same linen, in the same 2-fingered way, and I understood that the toast and the watch and the laugh had all been the soft part, the part that made the room agree I did not matter, so that this, the page, could be the quiet part nobody would remember in the morning. He had built the whole evening as one motion, crown the favorite, make the room laugh at the other one, slide the other one a page to sign while he is still warm and stunned and smiling. I did not pick the pen back up. I want to be honest that this was not a decision so much as a thing my hand did on its own, the way a hand pulls back from a stove before the mind has named the heat. The pen lay where I had set it the first time, parallel to the edge of the page, lined up the way my grandfather lined up every tool he was not finished using. I left my own hand flat on the linen beside it, and I looked at my father, and I said nothing, which is the one move in this family I had spent my whole life perfecting.
"Sam." The warning was in it now, low, the family voice, the one that has closed conversations in this family for 40 years. "Don't do this here. Not tonight. Don't make my night about you for once in your life."
I'm not making it about anything, I said. I kept my voice exactly where his was, low, level, a thing only the 2 of us and maybe Russell could hear. I'm just not signing a page I haven't read at a party, that's all. There's nothing else in it.
"There's nothing in it to read," he said. "It says you and your brother love each other and nobody fights. That's the whole page. You're turning a kindness into a scene."
Then it'll keep till Monday, I said. If it's a kindness, it'll still be a kindness Monday, in a room with the lights on, where I can read it first. Diane, on Russell's far side, had gone still in the way a person goes still when they have started listening to a conversation they were pretending not to hear. She leaned to my brother's ear and said something low, and I did not catch the words, but I caught Russell's face change as he took them, and I caught the part of his answer that came out loud enough to reach me.
"I don't know what's on it," Russell said to her under his breath, but not far enough under. "I haven't read mine either. That's what she's asking me. Whether I read my own."
He looked at the page in front of me. He looked at the pen lying down beside it. And I watched the question his wife had just put in his ear do something to him that nothing I had said all night had managed.
"Let me see it," Russell said, and reached for the page, and my father put 2 fingers on it and slid it back an inch, away from his eldest son's hand, toward me.
"It's Sam's," my father said. "It's got Sam's name on it. It's not yours to read, Russell."
"Funny," Russell said, slow, looking at our father's 2 fingers holding the page down. "All the things you've had me sign this month had my name on them, and you never once said, 'Let me read it first.' Why's Sam's the one that's private?"
Something moved behind my father's eyes. Quick, there and gone, and I did not have a name for it that night, though I have one now. It was not anger. This was faster than anger and underneath it. It was hurry. A man in a hurry at his own retirement party over a single page is a man with a clock running somewhere that nobody else in the room can hear.
"Monday it's a fight," he said. Monday there are lawyers, and you lose, and you'll have made every person at this table choose between us. Is that what you want? You want to make Don over there pick a side at a cake? Sign it now, and it stays family. That's the only difference between the two. Sam, tonight it's family, Monday it's war. I'm trying to spare you the war.
Why does it have to be tonight? I said. It was the only question I had, and I asked it plainly, and I watched it land somewhere it was not supposed to land. You've had 2 years. The estate's been sitting exactly where it's sitting for 2 years. Why does one page have to be signed at a dinner table tonight with 60 people watching when it could be signed in any office in town on any morning you like? He did not answer that. I want you to notice that he did not answer it because it is the only question that mattered, and a man who has an answer gives it, especially my father, who never in his life let a question sit on the table when he had a way to sweep it off. He looked at me, and the hurry was bright in him now, and instead of an answer, he reached for the warmth again. The tap turned it back on.
Because I'm tired, Sam, he said. And he made it gentle, made it a confession, made it the thing a son is supposed to soften at. I want it clean before I step back. I don't want you two in a room with lawyers in 10 years over a fence line your grandfather walked you both down when you were boys. I'm doing this so you don't have to. One day, when you've got something of your own to hand down, you'll understand why a man wants it clean before he goes.
Across the table, Russell had stopped smiling. He had been turning the watch on his wrist, idle, the way you turn a ring you are not used to, and at some point in the last minute, he had stopped turning it and started watching the two of us, our father and me, leaning at each other low over a folded page while the room ate cake around us. And my brother, who had spent the whole night lit up, who had called the watch just a watch an hour before, leaned in.
Dad, Russell said, low, matching us. Maybe not tonight. Let him read the thing. What's the harm? It's your party. Enjoy it. The paper's not going anywhere.
Stay out of it, Russell, my father said. And he said it fast, faster than the moment called for, and that was the second crack in him I caught and could not yet read. This is between me and your brother. You've got the watch. Wear the watch. Let me handle the rest of it.
You keep saying that, Russell said, quiet, and he did not look away this time. Wear the watch. Let me handle it. Sign here. That's been the whole month, Dad. Wear the watch. Don't read the page. He turned the gold face on his wrist once, the way he had turned it all night. What exactly am I wearing?
My father did not answer him, and Russell did not push it the rest of the way, not yet. He sat back, and the question hung there with the watch, half-asked. But he had said it out loud, in front of me, and I watched him hear himself say it. Let me handle the rest of it. My father said it to Russell the way you say a thing to a man you have already decided about, and I saw Russell hear it that way. The small recoil of a favorite son told in front of his younger brother, to sit down and admire his prize, and stop asking. I have wondered since whether being told to wear the watch and be quiet did more to him than anything I said that night. He tried once more. He lowered his voice until it was almost nothing, until it was the voice he used to use on me as a boy when he wanted me to understand that the conversation was over and I had simply not noticed yet.
There are things in motion you don't see, he said. That's not an insult, Sam. It's a fact. There are things that have to be clean by. And he stopped. He actually stopped himself, mid-sentence. The way a man stops with his foot already over the edge of a step he did not know was there in the dark. He pulled the foot back. He did not finish the sentence. Just sign the page. Please. I'm asking you as your father. Sign the page and let me have my night.
There are things that have to be clean by. By when, I did not get to ask, because he swallowed the rest of it. But I have built whole sleepless nights out of the words he did not say. By a date. My father had a date in his mouth and bit down on it in front of me, and I could not have known that 2 years before, a man now 2 years dead had also had a date in mind, and that the two dates were the same one, and that only one of the two men knew it was coming. I did not sign the page. I left my hand flat on the linen. I left the pen lying parallel to the edge, and into my father leaning at me with a bitten-off sentence in his mouth, into Russell pushed back wearing a watch that had gone heavy on him, into Aunt Marion 2 tables down, already telling the women beside her some new, soft cruelty about the son who only comes around when there is something to divide, into 60 people lifting forks to a cake with my father's name on it in the gold I had chosen, into all of that quiet, ordinary, terrible nothing, a sound began. It came from behind me, from the coat on the back of my chair, from the right pocket of the coat, where a small, ugly, outdated flip phone had been riding all evening the way my keys rode, a weight in the cloth and nothing more. A dead man's phone I had charged every night for 2 years and carried everywhere out of a habit that had long ago lost its reason. It was an old sound, a cheap electronic chirp, tinny, insistent, a ringtone they stopped putting in phones before either of my father's sons could vote. I had not heard it in 2 years. I had forgotten the shape of it, and it filled the small quiet between my father and me like cold water filling a boot. I knew one thing in my body before my mind would agree to it. It was not a wrong number. A phone with no contacts saved and a single number nobody in my family recognized does not ring by accident on the one night in 2 years it would matter most. Does not ring at the exact second my father finished erasing me in front of 60 people and slid me a page to sign my own erasure. Somebody had waited for this. Somebody had been told a long time ago to wait for exactly this. The watch and the laugh and the page and the room, and to make the phone ring the instant it came. My father heard it too. I watched it reach him. I watched a man who had been leaning at me in a hurry go still, and I watched his eyes go to the coat on the back of my chair faster than a man's eyes go to a thing he has never once thought about. That is how I knew, before anything else happened, that my father knew what the phone was. He had spent 2 years letting his sister make it a joke at tables exactly like this one. The corpse's phone, the relic, the harmless sentimental habit of the son you don't have to worry about. And now it was ringing 6 feet from his own hand, and his face, for 1/2 of 1 second before he buried it, was not the face of a man hearing a joke. It was the face of a man hearing a door he was sure he had locked. Picture the 1 second the way it was. The pen lying parallel to the edge of the page unsigned. My father's bitten-off sentence still hanging in the air between us. Russell pushed back in his chair, the watch loose and heavy on a wrist it did not fit, his face just beginning to turn toward the sound. Marion mid-cruelty 2 tables down. 60 forks halfway to 60 mouths, the cake with my father's name on it not yet cut. And under all of it, against the chair at my back, a sound no one in that hall had heard in 2 years, and that I, of all of them, had stopped believing I would ever hear at all. I did not turn to look at the faces. Not yet. I felt my own arm begin to move before I had decided anything with it. The slow, unthinking reach a man makes toward a thing he has carried so long he no longer feels its weight. Back, behind me, toward the coat on the chair, toward the pocket, toward the ringing. I am going to stop there, right there, with my hand halfway between the table I had set and the coat I had hung, halfway to a phone I had charged for 2 years and never once heard ring, in a room that had just finished, warmly and fondly and with a cake, erasing me. Because what came out of that phone when I finally answered it is the rest of this story, and the whole of it, and I am not going to tell it to you over my shoulder with my back half turned and my father's eyes going wide. Let me turn all the way around first, let me pick it up, let me open it, and then I will tell you whose voice was on the other end. So I turned around, and the cheap thing was loud. It did not buzz, it did not know how to buzz, it rang out loud, a tinny little melody from 15 years ago in a banquet hall that had gone silent from the coat of the son who had just refused to sign. Every head at my table turned. My father's hand, holding the pen out over the page, stopped in the air. Aunt Marion stopped mid-sentence. Russell looked up from the page at last and looked at my coat and then looked at me, and I watched him remember. In the same instant I was remembering, the only instruction a dying man ever gave me that I did not understand. Keep it charged. Don't ask why. I want to tell you I waited for the perfect beat, that I let the ring hang in the air for effect. I did not. I reached into the coat on the chair behind me and brought the phone out into the light. It was small and warm and stupid in my fingers, the way it had been for 2 years, and I flipped it open the way I had flipped it open in private 100 times to make sure the battery still held. Except this time it was ringing. This time, someone was on the other end. 60 people watched me do it. My father had just told them I was the boy he never had to worry about. The pen he had pushed across the linen was still lying where I had set it down, uncapped, pointing at the page he wanted signed. Russell had my grandfather's watch on his wrist, the clasp still loose because my father's wrist was thinner than his. Aunt Marion had her chin tilted at me, the way you tilt your chin at a man you have already decided is unwell. And into all of that quiet, I pressed a button I had pressed 1,000 times for no reason, and a voice I had not heard in 2 years filled the little speaker. I put it on the table. I set it down beside the pen, screen up, and I turned the speaker toward the room, and I did not say a word, because the voice did the saying. Grandpa. If you are hearing this, then my son has stood up in front of people and named one of his children the only one that counts. He has done the thing I told him never to do. You have to understand what that sounded like. It was not a sick man's voice. It was not thin or wandering. My grandfather had recorded it sitting up, clear, in the same flat, unhurried way he used to read the seed catalog out loud at the kitchen table when I was 9. It was the most ordinary sound in the world, and it stopped the room cold. Grandpa. My name is Walter Hale, not Junior, the first one. I built the land you are all standing on the dividends of, and I am going to tell you exactly what I did with it, with the date, and with the notary's seal, so that no one in this family can pretend they did not hear it from me. My father moved first. He reached for the phone the way you reach for a glass you have knocked toward the edge of a table.
Turn that off.
I did not turn it off. I put 2 fingers on the phone and held it flat to the linen.
Sam, turn it off. This is a recording. That is not how any of this works. It is a toy. It is the man's old toy phone, for God's sake.
Then it won't matter if the room hears the toy, I said. That was all I said at first. I did not raise my voice. I had spent 2 years deciding I would not raise my voice when this came, and the one promise I kept that night was that one.
You planned this. You sat at my retirement dinner, and you planned this. Of course you did. You always were the patient one. Sit there long enough, smile long enough, and wait for the old man to do your hating for you.
I didn't plan the date, Dad, I said. He did. I just kept it charged.
Charged. You've been charging a dead man's phone for 2 years like a... Everyone said you weren't right, Sam. Everyone. Your aunt, your cousins. I defended you. I stood there and I defended my younger son, who carries his grandfather's broken phone around like a relic, and this is what you do with.
You didn't defend me, I said. 10 minutes ago you told the room I wasn't worth worrying about. I was sitting right there when you said it. So were 60 other people. So it turns out was he. That stopped him, because he could not argue with the voice still coming out of the little speaker between us. He looked at the phone the way you look at a door you were sure you had locked. And while my father stood half out of his chair with his hand stopped in the air, the doors at the back of the Ridgeline Hall opened, and Eleanor Brant walked in. I should describe her because most of the room had spent 15 years calling her one thing, The old man's lawyer. That is what she was at every funeral and every Thanksgiving she ever stood at the edge of. The old man's lawyer, a coat over her arm, polite, easy to forget. She was not easy to forget now. She had a leather folder under one arm, and she walked the length of that banquet room I had booked, past the cake I had ordered, past my father, and she set the folder down on the linen next to my grandfather's still-talking phone.
"What hope do you have against me? Don't stop it," she said to me quietly when I reached to lower the volume so she could speak. "Let him finish his sentence. He gets to finish his sentence."
"You're the one who called it," I said. It was not really a question. I had carried that phone for 2 years and never once known whose voice would come out of it if it ever rang.
"What hope do you have against me?" "Hollis dialed it," she said. "I told him the second your father stood up and said the words." She took a folded card from inside the leather folder, a card in my grandfather's own square hand, and she read it to the room the way she would later read the transfers, flat exact to Eleanor Brandt. "What hope do you have against me? When my son Walter stands up in front of people and names one of his children the only heir, when he gives away with his mouth a thing he was never given to give. Call the phone I left with the boy who stayed to listen, and read this instruction aloud so the room hears it from me. Do not let him talk you out of it. Do not let him tell you I was confused. What hope do you have against me? I wrote this with my own hand and my mind in one piece, and I am telling you the day will come because I know the man, and the man cannot stand without an audience." She lowered the card. "That's what I'm doing, Sam. I'm reading it aloud the way he told me to. Now let him finish the rest."
So we let him. Grandpa. On the date stamped on the document my lawyer is holding, I placed the Hale land and the original fund, the core of everything this family lives on, into an arrangement I control. I did not give it to my son. I want that said plainly. I never gave the core to Walter, not for one day. He had the use of it. He never had the giving of it. So if my son has just stood up and handed any part of it to anyone, a watch, a deed, a page to sign, he has handed away a thing that was never his, not to Russell, not to himself, not to a bank. The land was never his to give. Grandpa. The person I named to receive the part I kept safe, after me, is the grandson who kept sitting at my table after everyone else got bored of my stories. The one who never once asked me for a thing. The one who held a phone for 2 years because I asked him to and never knew why. That is Sam. I am saying his name on purpose, so there is no room in this for anyone to say later that the old man was vague at the end. I was not vague. The grandson is Sam. Say it back to the room, Eleanor, if they need it twice. Sam.
"What hope do you have against me?" "Sam," Eleanor Brandt said into the silent room, because he had told her to, because a dying man had thought even of this. "The grandson is Sam Hale. He wanted you all to hear it from his mouth and then from mine, so that no one in this family could walk out of here tonight and tell it any other way."
I have stood at the back of 100 rooms and felt them shift when somebody important started talking. I have never in my life heard a room go as quiet as that room went when a dead man said my name out of a phone. Everybody at the table had laughed at me for charging. I want you to picture it the way I still see it when I close my eyes. A banner over the bar that said, "Happy Retirement Walter," in gold letters I had picked out. A microphone my father had used 10 minutes earlier to tell the room I was nothing. And under all of it, smaller than a deck of cards, a scuffed flip phone face up on white linen, speaking in the steady kitchen table voice of the man who had built every dollar in that room, saying a name. Not Walter, not Russell, mine. The waiters had stopped moving. A woman near the cake had her hand over her mouth, and my father, who had spent the toast standing tall, was sitting back down, slowly, the way a man sits when his knees decide it before he does. If your father stood there while your dead grandfather said your name into a room of 60 people who had just watched him erase you, what would you have wanted him to do next? I will tell you what mine did. He kept reaching for the phone.
This is a manipulation. Toward the end, he was not. Eleanor, you know he was not himself. You know that. You of all people.
He read me the seed catalog the week before he died, I said. I kept my voice low, the way I had kept it low all night. Page by page. He knew which tomato did poorly in clay. You're going to tell 60 people the man who could do that didn't know his own grandson's name?
What hope do you have against me? He recorded that 14 months before he died, Walter. He recorded it in my office. There were 2 witnesses and a notary in the room, and the notary is named on the certificate underneath it. He was more himself that afternoon than anyone in this hall is right now.
She opened the leather folder. She did it slowly, and she did it facing the room, not facing my father, so that the people who had nodded along while he crowned my brother could see her hands. She took out a document. Stiff paper, blue-backed, a gold notary seal pressed into the corner with a date under it, and she laid it down flat, and then she did the thing that took the air out of the room a second time. She picked up the single page my father had slid across the linen, the one he had told me to sign, the family understanding. She held it up beside my grandfather's notarized document so the room could see both at once, the way you hold up a real bill next to a forged one.
What hope do you have against me? This, she said, lifting my father's page an inch, asks Sam to sign away a share of the core. This, she set down the blue-backed one, is the page that says the core was never your father's to carve a share from. One of these was signed by Walter Hale Sr. in front of a notary. The other one, Walter Jr., printed at home this week.
That is a private family matter, my father said. You have no business reading anything in this room. You were his lawyer. He's dead. Your business with this family ended at the funeral.
What hope do you have against me? My business with your father ended at the funeral, Brant said. My business with the arrangement he left does not end until the arrangement does. He named me to protect it from exactly one thing, Walter. He named me to protect it from you.
From me, I am his son. I am the one who kept this family.
What hope do you have against me? You are the one who pledged his land against your own loan 11 months ago. So yes, from you. He wrote that sentence himself and made me read it back to him twice before he signed it, so I would not soften it later. It stopped being private when you moved part of the core, which is the part I came here to read.
This is the part where I understood that my grandfather had done more than leave me a phone and an envelope. He had seen the whole thing coming, years out, like a man watching weather move across a field he has farmed his whole life. Brant took a single sheet from the back of the folder. A copy, she said, the original already filed. A list of transfers, dates, and amounts, and she read them the way my grandfather read the seed catalog, flat, no drama, because the drama did not need her help.
What hope do you have against me? 11 months ago, a parcel of the core land was pledged against a private loan. Not a Hale family loan, a personal loan in Walter Jr.'s name to cover a deal of his own that went underwater. What hope do you have against me? 9 months ago, a second pledge. 6 months ago, the statements for the original fund stopped going to the family address and started going to a house on Birch Run. That is your house, Russell. What hope do you going to your house?
I watched my brother's face when she said his address. He had let our father clasp the watch on. He had not asked for any of this, but he had not refused it either, and there is a version of this story where Russell is the villain, and I will be honest that for a long time I thought I was living in that version. I was not. When Brant read out the house on Birch Run, Russell looked at the statements going to his own front door that he had never seen, and I watched a man do arithmetic he did not want to finish.
Wait, Russell said. Say that again. The statements come to my house?
What hope do you spring? Brant said.
I never got any statements. I never saw one statement. Diane brings the mail in I'd have. He stopped. I watched him stop. I never got any statements.
What hope do you have against me? No, Brant said. You wouldn't have. They were redirected, not delivered. Your name was useful on the address. It was not useful informed.
And there it was. The thing my grandfather had locked the core against, recorded 14 months early and timed a junk flip phone to announce. My father was retiring with a hidden loan around his neck, pledged against land he did not own, and a creditor running out of patience. He needed it all to look like it sat under one clean name before he walked out the door. So he had picked the son he praised the loudest, because praise is the cheapest way to make a man hold still while you load weight onto him. Would you have seen it from inside the crown? Russell had not. He told me later he had spent 2 days before the party feeling, for the first time in his life, like our father had finally chosen him on purpose. He had let the man put the watch on his wrist because for 2 days he had believed he had won something.
What's pledged against the land? Russell said. He was not asking Brant. He was looking at our father. Dad, what's the loan? What's the actual number on it?
Russell, sit down. This is being handled. This is a misunderstanding about the structure. That's all it is. And these two have turned it into a circus in front of.
You put statements on my address, my house, Diane's house, for 6 months and you never said a word to me. What's the number, Dad?
It's covered. The refinance covers it. That's the whole reason tonight, the whole reason I named you, so the bank sees one clean.
So the bank sees one clean name. Russell said it slowly, like he was hearing how it sounded. That's what I am. That's what tonight was. I'm the clean name.
You're my son.
Sam's your son, too. You crowned me so the bank would have somebody to chase that wasn't you. What's the number?
Russell.
What is the number, Dad? You stood up tonight and put a watch on me in front of all these people and called me the only real son, and the whole time it was so a bank would have a clean name to come after when they can't find you. Say the number out loud. You owe me the number, at least. You put my address on it.
My father did not answer him, and the not answering was the loudest answer in the room. Russell took a step back from the table. He looked at the watch on his own wrist, my grandfather's watch, the one my father had used as a prop 10 minutes earlier. And then he looked at the single page our father had pushed at me, the page Brant had just held up like a forgery. And Russell, who had been handed the crown, picked the page up himself. He did not tear it. He was always more careful than me. He picked it up off the linen, and he turned and he set it down in front of our father, squared it with 2 fingers the way you square a check you are handing back, and he said the only thing he said to the whole room.
You can keep the understanding. Whatever it's holding up isn't mine. I don't want the part of him you mortgaged.
That was the gilded cage opening. Nobody opened it for him. The golden son reached up and unlatched it himself, in front of 60 people, and stepped out, and the only thing the crown turned out to be was a bill with his name penciled in at the top. I had imagined this night for 2 years. In every version I imagined, I was the one who got to say something. I had lines. I had whole paragraphs I had built in the shower and in the car, lines about being the boy nobody had to worry about, lines I had sharpened until they could cut. I did not use a single one. I did not need to. My grandfather had recorded what needed saying 14 months before he died, and my brother had said the rest, and all I had done was charge a phone and press a button and put it on the table. The strangest thing about the worst night of my family's life is how little of it I had to do with my mouth. Brant closed her folder. She did not close it on a flourish. She closed it the way you close a file when the meeting is over and there is paperwork waiting.
What hope do you have against me? There's a man in the lobby, she said to my father, not unkindly, which somehow made it worse. He's been waiting for you to finish your speech. I asked him to wait until your grandson said his name, because your father asked me to make sure Sam heard it first. Now he can do his job.
The doors opened again. A man in a gray jacket came in, polite, holding an envelope of his own. Not my grandfather's kind, a court's kind. He found my father by name, said it as a question to be sure, and when my father answered out of pure reflex, the man put the papers in his hand and told him he had been served. I had pictured a sheriff. I had pictured something loud. It was a tired-looking man with a clipboard who said, "Have a good evening, sir," and left. And that was the most public humiliation my father will ever suffer, delivered in 11 quiet words at the retirement party I had decorated. My father stood with the court envelope in one hand and his own printed page in the other, the two pieces of paper that bracketed the whole night, and for the first time since the toast he looked at me instead of through me.
"You could have come to me," he said. "Whatever he told you, whatever's in that envelope, you could have come to me first, as my son, instead of letting her."
"I tried to pour you a glass of water tonight," I said, "like I do every year. You used the minute it took to tell 60 people I was nothing. So no, I let him talk instead. He'd been holding it for 2 years. He earned the floor." He did not have an answer for that. He set both pages down on the linen very carefully, side by side, and he walked out without his coat. Aunt Marion followed him. Most of the 60 had already gone. Brant walked me through it in the parking lot, leaning on the hood of my car with the cake still uncut inside. She did not use the long words. She said it the way my grandfather read the seed catalog. Flat. One thing at a time.
"What hope do you have against me? He'll fight it," she said. "He'll say the old man was confused. He'll find a lawyer who tells him what he wants. None of it holds."
"Why won't it hold?" I asked.
"What hope do you have against me?" "2 dates," she said. "The day he read it out loud. The day the seal went on it. They matched to the minute, and a notary watched. You can argue with a will. You can't argue with a man reading it aloud while someone watches him do it." She set the folder flat on the hood. "He moved part of the old man's land. He borrowed against it. So the morning I knew the date, I took all of this to the court."
"And the court did what?" I said.
"What hope do you have against me?" "Froze it," she said. "Every transfer, every loan he tied to the land. Not some, all of it the same day." She tapped the folder once. Then it said the old man's arrangement stands. It said the clean land and the first fund come to you, the way he wrote it. It put your father off the land entirely. He never had any say over it to begin with, and it told him to give back what he already took.
"Give it back," I said.
"What hope do you have against me?" "Give it back," she said. "He stood near a thing for 30 years and started spending it. The court told him to put it back. That's the whole of that word."
"And the page he wanted me to sign," I said.
"What hope do you have against me?" "Void," she said. "Not because you wouldn't sign it, because there was nothing under it to sign. A man printed a sheet at his kitchen table asking you to give up a share of a thing he had no share in himself. The court reads that for exactly what it is. She did not soften it. It's paper, Sam. It was always just paper."
And the watch. The thing I could not stop seeing. I asked her about the watch.
"What hope do you have against me? Goes back to the old man's estate, same as the land," she said. "It was never your father's to give. He stood up in front of 60 people and gave away a thing he didn't own. There's your whole night if you want it in one wristwatch."
Then I asked her the question I was most afraid of. "Where does the money go?" I said. "Any of it. Does any of it come to me?"
"What hope do you have against me? None of it comes to you as a check," she said, like she'd known I'd ask. "It doesn't turn into a number you buy a boat with. The arrangement stays whole. It does 2 things, and he wrote both years ago. What hope do you have against me?" At a kitchen table. 1 finger. It pays off the loan your father hid, straight to the people he actually owed, so nobody comes knocking at that land again. A 2nd finger. What hope do you have against me? And it opens a fund for the grandchildren's schooling, all of them. What hope do you have against me?
"He wrote in Russell's Kids," I said.
What hope do you have against me? Years ago, she said, before there was a villain or a phone on a table. Your grandfather wrote down all the names. Your father's the one who draws lines through them.
Diane never said a word to me the whole night. Her children's tuition is the cleanest thing to come out of the dirtiest party I ever threw. One part did not fit, and I asked her about it. My father had been loading the debt onto Russell. My grandfather had written Russell's children into the fund years before, the two of them pulling the same family in opposite directions, neither one telling the other. Did he know about the loan when he wrote the fund? I asked. Did he know what Dad would try to do to Russell?
What hope do you have against me? Not the details, she said, the shape. He told me once your son loves the look of a thing more than the keeping of it. He'll spend what shows and borrow against the rest. What hope do you have against me? And when it catches him, he'll reach for whoever he praised the loudest. So he locked the land. He wrote the children in. He gave you the phone. She looked at me. He didn't guess the loan, Sam. What hope do you have against me? The loan was just the man on schedule.
He knew the man. He did not need anything magic to do it. He had watched his own son across 40 Thanksgivings and believed what he saw instead of what he hoped. Before she got in her car, I asked her the last thing, plainly, because people hear a man was served papers and told to give money back and they fill in a cell. Is he going to prison? I said.
What hope do you have against me? No cell, she said. Don't lie awake picturing bars. It's in the court's hands now. The transfers are frozen. He's being told to give back what he took. What hope do you have against me? And the people he really owes are coming after his own pocket. His, not the land, because the land was locked away from them the whole time. The rest is slow. On paper, for a long time. What hope do you have against me? She opened her car door. He gives back what he took. He doesn't keep the name he tried to borrow against. What hope do you have against me? 30 years of this work, I'll tell you. That's enough. It's more than most people get.
It was enough. That is the whole of it. And it was enough. Aunt Marion, who spent a year telling the family I was only circling, waiting for my share, did not say goodbye on her way out. I noticed I did not mind. They handed Russell the watch and called it the family name. Grandpa handed me a phone and a number. I charged it one last time and then I let it rest. But I am ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the grave, because that is the part that matters. And it happened 2 days later, on a Tuesday, with no audience at all. Russell drove. He showed up at my door without calling, which he had never once done in his adult life, and he said, "Get in," and I got in. Neither of us said much on the road. He had not been out to the cemetery since the funeral. I had not told him I went out there every few months, and I did not tell him then either, because some things you keep even from the brother who is finally on your side. It is a plain stone. My grandfather did not want anything carved on it but his name and his 2 dates, and that is what is on it. The first dates I had seen written as numbers in 2 years, that did not come with a notary seal. We did not bring flowers. Russell had never been a flowers man, and neither was the man under the stone. We sat on the hood of Russell's car the way we used to sit on the tailgate of Grandpa's truck when we were boys, and he would point at the property line and tell us which fence post his own father had set. The metal was cold. Neither of us minded.
"You used to sit out here," Russell said. "By yourself. I used to think it was morbid. Sam goes and talks to a rock." He looked at the stone. "Turns out you were the only one of us still listening to him."
He wasn't a rock, I said. He was just patient. He knew the call would come. He just didn't get to be in the room when it did.
"He never liked me best," Russell said, after a while. It was not bitter. He said it the way you say a true thing you have just finished checking. Dad did, not him. Dad picked me and made it loud so I'd hold still. Grandpa picked you and didn't tell anybody, so you'd be safe.
You don't have to do this, I said. You didn't know about the loan. He used your name. That's on him, not you.
I knew enough, Russell said. I knew he never asked you to the boat. I knew he had you pour the water every year, so he had something to make a face about. I saw it. I just liked being the one he made the face for. You can know a thing and still take the seat, Sam. I took the seat for 40 years.
You gave it back 2 days ago, I said, in front of everybody.
2 days late.
Grandpa was 3 minutes early his whole life. We average out. He looked at me for a second. Then he looked back at the stone. And something in him let go that I had never once seen let go in 40 years of being his younger brother. Then Russell reached over and unbuckled the watch from his own wrist. It had been on his wrist for 2 days. He had worn it home from the party, worn it the day the papers came, worn it out here. And I think he had needed those 2 days to do what he did next. He took my grandfather's watch off, and he turned my hand over, palm up, the way you turn a child's hand to give it something fragile, and he set the watch in it and closed my fingers around it.
"Take it," he said. It always listened to him, not me. You're the one who kept sitting there. It should have been yours the whole time, and we both knew it, and I let Dad put it on me anyway. Take it.
I took it. I want to tell you I said something worthy of the moment. I did not. I said, it runs a little fast. Because it does. It always has. Grandpa never said it right because he liked being 3 minutes ahead of everyone, and Russell laughed, this short, cracked laugh, and put his hand over his eyes for a second, and then we just sat there on the hood with the watch ticking 3 minutes fast in my closed hand. 2 brothers and a stone and a fence line our great-grandfather had set, and nobody read anybody a lesson because there was not one to read. If your brother had taken the watch off his own wrist at the grave and pressed it into your hand and told you it had always listened to the old man and not to him, would you have taken it? Or would 2 years of being the boy nobody worried about have made your hand close slower than mine did? I drove the watch home in my closed fist. That night I did the last thing I want to tell you about. And it is a small thing, and it is the whole point. I have a shelf in the hall by the door. It is where I put the things I do not want to lose track of. Keys, the good flashlight, the envelope, back when there was a sealed envelope. I set my grandfather's watch on that shelf, and then I took out the flip phone. For 2 years I had kept it charged. I had carried a dead man's junk phone in my coat pocket through 100 ordinary days, through grocery runs and oil changes and 1 retirement party, and the whole family had laughed at me for it, and twice I had nearly let it die just to stop being the man who charged a corpse's phone, and both times I had plugged it back in because he had said, "Keep it charged, don't ask why," and I am the grandson who does what the old man asks, even when the old man is 2 years gone. It had done the thing it was kept alive to do. Hollis, my grandfather's man, the one who had held the number and the date all this time, had made the call land the moment my father stood up and crowned his only real son, and Brant had walked through those doors, and a dead man had said my name into a banquet room, and the job was finished. The phone had nothing left to wait for. I plugged it in one last time. I let it fill all the way to that little full battery icon I had been chasing for 2 years, the icon nobody but me had ever seen as anything but a joke. And then I unplugged it, and I closed it, and I laid it down flat on the shelf next to the watch that runs 3 minutes fast, and I left it there to go quiet. They put the watch on Russell and called it the family name, and the family name turned out to be a mortgage. Grandpa put a phone in my hand and a number I never had to dial, and that turned out to be the family. The thing they laughed at me for carrying is the only thing in that whole hall that was telling the truth. It is on my shelf now, going dark a little more each day, and I am letting it, because the one call it was charged to carry already came. The watch is still 3 minutes fast. I have not set it right. I do not think I am going to. There is one thing I have not decided yet, and I am going to leave it with you, because I genuinely do not know the answer, and the court clerk could not tell me either. When the arrangement finishes paying my father's true creditors, and the core is clean, and the schooling fund is open, and everything my grandfather built is finally sitting exactly where he locked it to sit, there is a line in the schedule, near the bottom, in his handwriting, that names one more person to be told. Not me, not Russell, not Diane. A name none of us recognize, with a town next to it and no explanation, and a date, of course, because he never wrote anything without a date. Brant says she is required to make the call when the estate closes. She says she does not know who it is either. She says my grandfather only told her this, that when the land was clean again, somebody else had earned the right to hear it from him too. I keep thinking about who else he handed a phone. I'll tell you when I find out. Until next time.